Hi, Evan. Welcome to Funnel Vision Podcast. Excited to have you on today to share your sales tips, tricks, and expertise with our community of sales professionals.
Thank you, Alana. Happy to be here. Excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, perfect. So, first question is what is, in your opinion, the game-changing tactic that you rely on to build strong client relationships?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really just about focusing on helping whoever it is that I'm speaking with, coming from a mentality of, can I be helpful? Rather than coming from a perspective of, oh, I'm trying to sell somebody something. Because in today's world, with so much noise, people can kind of smell that salesy approach, and people don't want to be sold, but they love to buy. And so it's a quote I remember hearing years ago from Jeffrey Gitomer. But it's really so true. People want to build relationships with people and then work with people that they know, like, and trust. And so if we can build genuine relationships and come into conversations with the perspective of how can I be helpful? What needs can I help solve? And if, by the way, at the end we can do business together, great. If not, that's fine too.
Yeah, yeah, so important is what you're saying. It's just to have that like genuine, authentic connection and from where you come from, help first, right? Like, what can you do to help? And yeah, if that means doing business together, awesome. If that means making an introduction to somebody else or, kind of just having a conversation and lending your expertise, then that's great too.
100%. Yeah, totally agree. And I think that's something that sometimes people feel has to be innate, but I've found that it can be learned. There are individuals that maybe start out a sales career or start out in other careers that they don't think of them as salespeople. But when they kind of flip that mental script of, rather than trying to be a salesperson, but rather like, can I just be helpful? Because, oh yeah, sure, that's easy. I can be helpful. And then people genuinely calm themselves down and make others feel more comfortable. So I think that's been really a game changing approach to build strong client relationships.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What is the best piece of sales advice that you've received and how has that changed your approach?
That's a great question. I've received a lot of great sales advice over the years, but I think one of the things I have like two competing simultaneously. One is you got to just show up. A lot of times people psych themselves out by trying to justify why they should or shouldn't go either to a meeting or to a networking event or to a conference or a trade show, or you got to show up because really, if you don't give yourself the opportunity to be successful by showing up, that's just like you're setting yourself up, frankly, for failure. So showing up is half the battle. The other side of it is you got to pick up the phone and sell. Great book written by Alex Goldfein by that name, Pick Up the Phone and Sell. And the idea is really pick up the phone and proactively call people to help them. And from a sales perspective, as advice, a lot of times we don't want to bother people. We think they're busy. They're getting, phone is ringing off the hook. And the truth of the matter is, I have found over the last year plus, as I've been more proactive about doing this type of work, people are genuinely appreciative to hear from you. And it's not an email, it's not a text, it's not some LinkedIn or whatever other social media message. I'm not saying there isn't a place for those things, but that genuine connection is so important in today's digitally noisy world. So I think that's the best piece of sales advice. Just pick up the phone and call people proactively to help them.
Yeah, I've taken that advice as we've been talking, over the past like months or so about, like outgrow and other stuff. I've taken that advice for myself as well. And it's so simple, right? It's not, some type of like crazy out there advice, but it is so helpful. And even like I've taken that to say like, like you say, like proactively reach out to people where you don't need to touch base, where there's not something going on right now. But I've also taken it to when it's like a response to an email, like a client sends an email and really instead of just responding back via email, which is the easiest way to pick up the phone and have a conversation, because you could just learn so much. You develop that relationship and all those things. So it's really simple advice, but just so spot on for, building those relationships.
100%. And in addition, one of the things that I've also found is that when you change that mindset from being reactive to proactive, even if it is proactively calling someone after you receive an email, it changes your approach, and it gives you the opportunity to ask questions and to better understand that person's needs or wants, so that you can help fill that gap and fill that void. And it often leads to opportunities that you didn't know existed, and had you just emailed them back, you never would have uncovered those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit to AI. AI has been the talk of the town, and it's become kind of shot out of nowhere, over the past couple of years, and just become everything. And every business has been adopting AI in different ways. But how do you see AI, changing the game in the sales world, and really the business world in general, now that it's here to stay?
What did ChatGPT tell me to say here? No, no. In all seriousness, I believe that what AI is doing is fundamentally transforming sales by shifting from a relationship driven art to more of a data enhanced science. But you need both. So AI is not going to build relationships for you, but it can give you more data and enhance your ability to build those relationships more artfully. And so it allows you to personalize at scale more, let's call it hyper personalization. So hyper personalization at scale is a lot easier leveraging AI. It also gives you the opportunity to be more predictive in both sales leads as well as forecasting. So as you're looking at wanting to put your best effort forward and making sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck in whatever precious sales and marketing energy that you have, you want to make sure that you're focusing that attention on people and companies that are most likely to buy, or that you can help most seamlessly with the product or service that you offer. I think also from an automation standpoint and an efficiency standpoint, I mean, it's like kind of the lowest hanging fruit is, what can I have a computer or some other piece of technology do for me that I don't have to do? Because if I'm doing it manually, it's not a great use of my time. Um, I, as I think about some of the other, let's call them benefits, if you will, or opportunities, because they could be benefits, they could be distractions, just depending on how deep you dive into them. But from a potential positive perspective, I would say that you can be more conversationally intelligent leveraging AI-powered sales tools, and like, for example, using note takers or other ways to get deeper insights into meetings or calls, or talk time ratios. Like, I have a note taker that I use for a lot of my meetings, and it's like, hey, you've been talking for 78% of the time. I'm like, now I know what my wife was talking about. But in all seriousness, it's like, whether it's keyword tracking or getting a like sentiment analysis, there's a lot of things that you can glean from AI driven help that allows salespeople, or anybody, frankly, doing business today, to do it more efficiently, leveraging some of those tools. But I would say, from like zooming back out, I don't believe AI is going to replace salespeople. What it will do is it will replace bad salespeople. So the future, I believe, in sales belongs to reps or salespeople who can combine both empathy and insight and relationship building with AI enhanced tools and data. And that will help them be more successful, as well as help their clients and customers see more success with the products or services that the salespeople are selling.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said. It's using AI as an add-on to the things that you're doing to get more insights, to get the data, the note takers and things that have just become so like just amazing. But you still need salespeople, and you still need those things are relationship driven. In sales and in business in general, like that's the part that you can't use AI for, but you can take the insights from AI to make those conversations better, to have better data, to have better conversations.
Yeah,
But you're still the one having those conversations and building those relationships.
totally. And that it just reminds me of a funny conversation that I had recently. I was on a Zoom call with a couple of members of a cohort that I'm a part of, and there was one or two note takers from other attendees that weren't able to join the meeting that had joined the meeting. So we have maybe six people in the meeting. There are, those six people, some of their note takers, and then maybe two or three note takers of people that weren't actually in the meeting. And it inevitably became a conversation like, if the people are not here, should we allow their note takers to be here? Because like that kind of seems a little bit disingenuous. The note taker's not going to ask any questions on behalf of those people, right? They're not going to bring any value. And if we're using them to not have to come to a meeting, then why are we why are we even going to that meeting to begin with if we don't see the value in showing up?
Yeah.
So it was just kind of an interesting conversation.
Yeah. No, my rule is no note taker. If you're not in the meeting, your
You're
note
not
taker's
there.
not in
Note
the
taker
meeting.
shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
that's
I
kind of
agree.
overall rule. Yeah, for sure. So, what do you think is something that a salesperson should stop doing in order to become more successful?
Stop emailing people. Like just if here's the thing, if you're emailing prospects and warm leads specifically, as opposed to picking up the phone and calling them and trying to build a real relationship. Uh, so I go back to Alex Goldfein. He had a great quote that I absolutely love. He said, sending someone an email is volunteering your information into their trash. If you think about it, we're all bombarded with so many emails every single day. And the truth of the matter is, it's hard to keep up with all of them. So if you have a really important message or a product or a service that you really truly feel can help this company or this person, call them proactively. Again, I'm not saying there's no place for email, but the email can summarize or outline or can be useful as a follow-up tool, but not as the initial point of entry. I mean, and it's more than just email. I think if you're using cold outreach without any form of connection to begin with, I understand that it's a law of averages and there might be some people that you can actually get business from, but it feels icky on the other side, right? Nobody wants to be cold called. Nobody wants to be pitched. So all of those LinkedIn messages, all of those emails, all of the noise that we are fending off actually prevents the legitimate opportunities that we want to take and move forward from reaching us as effectively. So if we proactively reach out in the way that the person on the other side wants to be communicated to, that I think is the best approach. So if we're just trying to do what's easy for us rather than what's best for them, that's a terrible idea. And I would not recommend doing that. So unless you genuinely don't want to grow your business and you just want to be busy with busy work. So then keep doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with you so much. Like I said, like since we've been having these conversations and everything too, like I personally have been taking this to kind of to our business, and it really is true. Like spend the time doing having the conversations, and not in just sending random emails or the cold stuff, like and for prospecting, like get out there and network, like be face to face with people, like get in front of people, have conversations. Like I'm still a big fan of having lunches, having coffee. Like you never know where who you're going to meet, and those conversations are generally you just get so much deeper just meeting someone in person too.
Yeah. I will say though that I have found I kind of separate the prospects or warm leads category from connectors in terms of how I interact. I'll still proactively call both, but the time that I'll spend will differ So for prospects or warm leads, I'm I run my business on 3 to 5 proactive calls a day, and I do that with the assumption that when I'm calling, the person is actually not going to pick up the phone. So I'm assuming I'm going to get their voicemail. I leave a voicemail. I send a follow-up text. Um, Simple. And honestly, 2 out of 3 people get back to me on average, sometimes even more, because I'm not cold calling people. I'm calling people that I know, or people that know me, or people that I've interacted with before. And so there's it's a very reasonable expectation that somebody might be in a meeting, they might not be available, and so I don't take it personally. I don't take any offense if someone's not answering the call. At the same time, they'll either call me back or they'll send me a follow-up text saying, "Hey, sorry, I was in a meeting or I wasn't available then. When can we connect?" And inevitably we do. And what's so interesting though is whether you're doing that with prospects, warm leads, or with connectors, it just gives you an opportunity to catch up and
Mhm.
connect or reconnect or just explore what's going on in their world. Like, hey, how's it going? How's the family? How are things? And then asking just genuine questions like, hey, is there anything you're working on that I could help you with? Like, what do you got going on in your world that I might be able to help with? And coming with that approach has been really, really helpful. I do occasionally do the coffees and lunches thing, but not as much as I used to, because I find that the requirement of time to figure out how to get all that stuff scheduled is not necessarily beneficial to either party. And so if there's somebody who I know that I have a relationship with, by all means, I'm going to spend some time with them. But it's not like, how can I fit, 50 coffees or lunches into a week?
Yeah.
It's really more like, how can I, like, 30 to 60 seconds per proactive call, leave a voicemail, send a follow-up text. It's 3 to 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I hear you there. Um, let's switch a little bit to talking about like talent and sales talent. So we all know businesses have a hard time finding top sales talent, especially hunters. Do you have any like go-to strategies or questions that you ask to really identify, rock star salespeople?
Well, as an EOS implementer, one of the things that I now do naturally is I use the EOS tools. Some of the core tools that we use to identify if someone's a right fit for any position, not just for sales, but it's just as applicable for sales as it is for anything else, is what are the core values of the organization, of the company, and is there alignment between this candidate or potential hire and the core values of the company? Because if there is alignment between the core values of both the company and the individual, well, then there's a much higher likelihood of success. And when I say core values, when we say core values in the EOS vernacular, essentially what we're talking about is what are the behaviors or the characteristics that are truly core to how we want everyone in the entire company to act and to behave. And it's who we are at the core. So if people don't align with the core of who we are, they simply can't be here because it just doesn't work. It's like oil and water. It's never going to mesh. So, but if we can attract the right people, the people who fit our culture, the people who naturally are wired in a similar way, it doesn't mean that we want the same people across the board. We want different personalities. We want diversity of thought. We want diversity of experience of all of those things. Gender, race, religion, all of the things. We want that. But what do they truly care about? So like at EOS, our core values are be humbly confident, grow or die, help first, do what you say, and do the right thing. So it like anybody who comes into our world, if they exhibit those behaviors, those core values, those characteristics, we're gonna naturally vibe. And if you don't, if a person is very self-centered and help first is like they're allergic to that type of mentality, it's just not gonna really work for very long. And so that's just ours. But identify what the core values of your company or the organization are first, so that then you can attract those right people. And then some of the other tools that we use are things like the people analyzer to assess if you have the right people or if you're attracting potential candidates that fit the core values. as well as the accountability chart, which is kind of like an org chart, but on steroids, because it's about crystallizing what's the structure of the organization first. And then if we know what the roles of each of the functions within every single seat in the organization are, then we can attract people with the experience, with the knowledge, with the God-given talent or ability. The people who already fit our core values, we can put them in seats based on what they're naturally best at, what Dan Sullivan calls unique ability. Because if we can do that, then we're setting them up for success, and we're getting a lot more productivity from that seat or function in the company.
Yeah, I love that. We obviously same use that as, as in our process, and I could not agree more. Finding the right people and the right culture fit is something that is often overlooked. But when companies are looking to hire, they're looking to check off, the skills on a resume to make sure they match. But really finding that right person that's a good culture fit is a key to finding someone that is going to truly drive your organization forward.
Totally. The way I like to explain it when I'm talking to clients and I'm explaining this to them is, do people get up on Monday morning and almost get speeding tickets on the way to work? Because if they do, then you have someone who like genuinely fits the culture and they love doing what they do. They are energized by the work that they're doing rather than zooming out of there Friday afternoon, can't wait to get wherever they're going and as far away from work as possible. Those people are probably not energized by what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So Evan, tell us a little bit about your background, what you do, and where people can find you.
Sure. So it's interesting. I have kind of a unique entrepreneurial journey, a little bit inverse of most entrepreneurs. I grew up as a childhood entrepreneur, always figured I'd go into the family business. We sold yarn for knitting, crocheting, and my dad and grandfather and great grandfather. So I always figured I'd go into the business. But when I was in graduate school and thinking about joining the business full time, I called my dad one day and I said, all right, I think I'm ready. He said, well, that's great. Here's the thing. You got to work elsewhere for at least 2 years before you could join the business. I was like, how did I not know this? But he said, why don't you go get a job at a new store that's opening nearby? And so I did. I applied for a job and got hired at Walmart. Started as an hourly associate, went through their management training program 6 months later, and ultimately spent 4 years helping run or manage about 11 different stores, all in the Northeast, from Long Island, New York, up through Connecticut. And during that time, I learned not only how to run and operate a great business, and by the way, who better to learn from than the Fortune 1, but I also learned what it looks and feels like to work for a company that's truly mission-driven, purpose-focused, and living and breathing its core values every single day. I didn't fully appreciate how important that would be until over 10 years later in my career. Well, fast forward about 18 years ago, I was called into the family business, spent the first year streamlining some operational efficiencies, and then I moved into sales, took over international e-commerce, spent the next 12 years running around the world, growing those areas about 25x, took our products from 1 continent to 5, and then they gave me sales responsibility for the whole company, and I was managing those big relationships like the Walmarts and the Michaels and, Hobby Lobbies, Amazon, etc. And as much as I saw success on the sales side of things, I often found myself a little bit frustrated by the lack of aligned vision, the lack of role clarity, accountability, things that are quite frankly very common in any family business. But we were a multi-generational family business that had as many as 8 family members, so you could imagine the complexity. And in my zeal to combat those frustrations, about 9 years ago, I had joined a peer group. It was a Vistage group. And a couple months in, I was sharing some of my challenges with the other members. And one of the other members said, hey, have you heard of this thing called EOS? I said, no, what's that? He said, well, it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And essentially what it is, it's a way of harnessing the human energy in your business so that you could run a better business and frankly, live a better life. And I said, well, that sounds good. Long story short, we ended up bringing in him as our EOS implementer, and we worked with him for 2.5 years, smoked out a lot of issues, gained a lot more clarity around our vision, gained more traction towards that vision, built a much healthier, cohesive team. We brought in our first non-family president and CEO in the company's 147-year history. It's kind of a big deal. On the scale of like miraculous proportions, there was like the splitting of the Red Sea and then like getting 8 family members to agree on that decision. Probably a smidge below. But then we started getting private equity offers that were off the charts compared to where they were 5 years prior. And rather than an external sale, we ended up having an internal sale. Some members of the family who wanted to stay were bought out by those who, or sorry, bought out the ones who wanted to sell. And myself and three family members at the end of 2021, we successfully exited the business. And I've always been passionate about helping businesses grow. And so when I took the next step in my career, it was like a calling to become an EOS implementer and help, because I wanted to help other business owners really get what they want from their business. And with my sales experience, about 6 months ago, I also became a certified Outgrow advisor. And so what EOS is for leadership teams to help the whole team and the company clarify the vision for the organization and gain more traction towards that while building a healthier team. Outgrow is for the sales function, what EOS is for the whole company. And so what Outgrow is all about is creating more predictable, systematic revenue growth so that I can help my clients get more predictable revenue to the tune of 15 to 30% annually, year over year. A lot of sales is reactive out there, especially in the uncertain times that is today. And so if we can take back control of our revenue growth and our revenue generation through proactive actions and some mindset tweaks, like how can we not do that? So that's what I do today. I do also some speaking, keynotes, workshops, that type of stuff. I really I enjoy helping entrepreneurs really get more of what they want from their business. And so whether it's through EOS or Outgrow or speaking engagements, I love doing all of that and helping other entrepreneurs get what they want.
Amazing. I love your story, Evan. You know how I feel about yarn myself as well as a crocheter. So I love to hear that. Love your story, love what you're doing, and appreciate having you on the, Funnel Vision show here, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks. And if anybody wants to reach out, feel free, evan.blumenthal@eosworldwide.com. And we'll put the, my email in the link.
Absolutely. We'll tag you and everything else as well. Thank you so much, Evan.
Thanks. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.